Hi, and thanks for joining me. Wow, what a huge story. What a way to end 2023. Justice Fancourt's findings. It is so dramatic. And there is so many brilliantly dramatic understories that are swirling beneath the surface of all of this. Now, I thought I'd take a little bit of a different approach to all of this. So what I did was I had a look at what the predominantly right-wing media was saying about Justice Fancourt's findings. And then I had a look at what the predominantly left-wing media was saying about Justice Fancourt's findings. And then what I did was I brought those opinions to the actual findings, which I had downloaded. So I can't claim I have read the whole lot. I haven't read, over 300 pages or whatever it was of findings. All I've done was take main opinion, main media commentary that is out there, and then brought that to the actual findings to check facts and to check what is fact and what is opinion and what was really found and what I could share with you that I can back up, that I can say, well, look, this is the truth of the situation without being biased one way or the other. Now, I said about 6 months ago that I thought it was a huge pity that Prince Harry was actually made part of this case, and even worse, a key witness for this case against MGN. Now, I had a lot of sympathy for the other claimants in this case because having read and really read the results of the Levinson inquiry part 1, which was a painful experience, I could see that justice was not done. Even though it was a long time ago and people say we should move on and blah, 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 it wasn't. It wasn't done. A lot of perpetrators got away with a lot. And the reason why they got away with it was because there wasn't the political will to have a Levinson Part 2. There wasn't the will from law enforcement because it was going to expose a lot of troubling things. And there wasn't the political will because it was also going to expose a lot of troubling things. And there certainly wasn't will from media organisations because they didn't want things like Section 40, some form of regulation, government regulation of the press to actually take hold. So there was a lot of agendas, there was a lot of vested interests, and as we know, Levinson 2 was dropped. Now, so, individual justice could have been served for some of the claimants against MGN. Now, the reason why a lot of perpetrators in MGN and also a lot of other newspapers was not served was that most were settled out of court. They paid vast sums of money so that they didn't have to face their day in court. Now, if we take Prince Harry out of it, which would be really convenient because then we can concentrate on the justice of the actual situation rather than our quite valid dislike of Prince Harry and his behaviour and the disloyalty that he's shown towards his family, which I have no argument with. I have been, in my small little way, working very hard all year to expose the inconsistencies, the bullying, and, really the amusing lack of self-awareness that is evident with the melodrama Cito duo. So I've played my part in that way. So let's look at what I found, and I want you, if you can, to take Harry out of it. I want you to put aside your delight at his comeuppance about the fact that only 17 out of 33 claims were really in any way found in his favour, that the compensation of 140,000 something pounds was so small in comparison to his legal costs, his coming legal costs, which haven't been decided yet, and of course the millions and millions of dollars he's going to shell out in legal fees and in these further cases that are yet to be heard. Do I understand the delight in that? Yes, I do. I do understand the delight in that. I have no quibble with it at all. But I think we need to set it aside because I want to bring something else to the table from Justice Fancourt's findings. So I've made notes, and so this video is not going to particularly be very slick and produced and maybe a little rambly, but I want to get across some really juicy things to share with you because you might not have had time to actually read the judgment. So, one thing we can know for sure, and this is a fact, is that Justice Fancourt found illegal information gathering was widespread. Now, this is not just in relation to Prince Harry's case. So that's what I'm saying. Please, let's just pluck the prince out of it and plop him over here, just so we can sort of look at this in a more interested way without being biased or prejudiced or more interested in the comeuppance that is going the way of the melodrama-pseudo duo. No, I don't mean you shouldn't delight in it. Go for it. Enjoy yourself. It's an early Christmas present. But, so he found that illegal information gathering was widespread. He also found that at Mirror Group newspapers, it was extremely widespread from 1996 and had become a habit by 1998. Now, one of the most damning findings, which I could verify, was that MGN Mirror Group newspapers was engaged in phone hacking while the Levinson inquiry was taking place. The cheek, the total unmitigated cheek. Can you believe it? And probably the most concerning aspect is the use of the fact that the use of private investigators to illegally obtain information from private citizens was, and I quote, hidden not just from Parliament and the Levinson inquiry, but from the court too. Now that is significant, and that is not something we should overlook just because Prince Harry is a doofus that we don't like. So, I think that's important to take note of. Now, that in itself, in my opinion, should be the basis for criminal proceedings. Now, let's pluck Piers Morgan out of it. We've plucked Prince Harry out of it, plop him over here. Pluck Piers Morgan. We better plop him over here because if we put him near Prince Harry, they'll probably have a knockdown a fight. Let's put him over there. Now, there were other people named in the findings that were deemed to be responsible and to have clear knowledge of these illegal activities. Some of the names were as follows: Gary Jones, Richard Wallace, Tina Weaver, Mark Thompson, Sly Bailey, and Paul Bickers. Now, Justice Fancourt found in summary that these people knew about illegal information gathering. And this is the most important point I want to make with this video because I could not live with myself if I didn't. He found they were not held to account. Now, with the circus that is going on with Piers Morgan, oh, he's over this side, isn't he? Piers Morgan, and Prince Harry over this side. Now, you two don't fight. It's getting sort of buried. It's getting buried what's important. So I've got a question to ask you. If it was you and your family, and illegal private information was actually gathered about you, and that illegal private information actually resulted in destroying your family relationships. Now again, Prince Harry is not in what I'm saying. Piers Morgan is not in what I'm saying. I'm talking about the other claimants. I'm talking about MGN. I'm talking about Justice Fancourt's findings. I'm talking about justice. So let's go back. Your family. Family relationships have been totally destroyed. You can't trust family members that you thought you could trust. You have had people unalive themselves due to the breakdown in family and professional relationships. Employees have been sacked and had their careers totally destroyed because they were accused of being untrustworthy. Horrible, horrible things have happened. Would you want justice? Would it matter how long since it happened? If perpetrators of that illegal information gathering had not been brought to justice and you knew they hadn't been brought to justice, would you want criminal proceedings to go ahead? Would you want your day in court? Would you want them to have to answer the allegations that were made in findings of a civil trial? Because shouldn't they have a chance to have their day in court to defend themselves against these allegations? And if they are indeed innocent, they will be able to defend themselves against these allegations, won't they? And I'm not talking about the allegations that Harry made. I'm not talking about the fact Piers Morgan is denying everything, and he has. And who am I to say he's not telling the truth? But shouldn't there be a day in the court, criminal proceedings, to check the allegations of the findings of this civil procedure? Because like I said, the civil procedure found in its findings that these people knew about illegal information gathering and they were not held to account. So, is it all going to get muddied by another video that I made a long time ago where I said if we like them, then they're innocent. If we dislike them, then they're guilty. Well, that's not how justice works, is it? Evidence has to be produced, it has to be tested. And particularly in a criminal trial, the burden of proof is a lot higher. Now, we all know that this was a civil proceeding and the findings didn't have to meet the burden of proof that a criminal proceeding had to meet. But the findings are very clear. So in my mind, and particularly as Leveson 2 did not go ahead, which was supposed to address the fact that a lot of perpetrators had not met justice, I don't know. I think maybe there's more to this, and I think, personally, that further investigation should be undertaken. Now, whether it will is another matter because there is no political will from the Conservatives or from Labor in the UK for it to undergo any further investigation. They don't want to touch it. It is a hot potato. It is a guaranteed vote loser. People do not want to spend money on it. They don't want to revisit it. They just want to move on. But unfortunately, the people that suffered at the hands of illegal information gathering, at the hands of MGN that has now been found in Justice Fancourt's findings, they can't move on. Their lives have been affected forever. And the reason why clear perpetrators that had clear knowledge were never brought to justice was because money was thrown at the claimants. Money was thrown. Settlements were made. They didn't want it to go to court. They didn't want criminal proceedings for obvious reasons, because they probably knew that it was going to be extremely hard to defend. Now, it's going to be a lot easier to defend now because so much time has passed. So much evidence cannot be produced. A lot of the evidence from the Leveson inquiry can never be produced again. So a lot of the perpetrators are probably feeling a little more confident than they would have been if it had gone to court maybe, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago. They're going to have an easier time of it, I would imagine. Now, I've made some notes because there's a lot of things going around, rumours about King Charles visiting the court. If you are one of those people that believe that he had undue influence on this finding, well, then you need to download the finding. I'll link to it in the description box below, because you will read over, all these hundreds and hundreds of findings that is an impossibility. A visit to the court a day before the findings were released could not have resulted in any alteration of these findings. Meticulous, detailed explanations and work have gone into these findings. And if you want to have confidence in the justice system, then download the finding and read it for yourself. Plow through it, because then you will see that any conspiracy theories about any undue influence by the Crown in the UK is a load of unmitigated and sort of venomous codswallop. Now, it's interesting that a lot of people actually named in Justice Fancourt's finding, and they were the names that I read out to you earlier before. Now, again, keep Piers Morgan out of this. Keep Prince Harry out of this. I don't want two of those overinflated egos to distract us from actual facts. So let's just talk about the other names that were named in Justice Fancourt's findings. Now, it's interesting that a few of them actually hold really high positions with Rupert Murdoch's Talk TV. One is actually editor of the Daily Express, which isn't a Murdoch publication, but a couple of them are really high up in Talk TV. Now, do we want that? Do we want the thing that some people's careers actually thrived post Levinson? That some people's careers, even though they were found to have the information that they should have acted on and done the right thing, because innocent people were damaged very severely, they thrived. Their careers were actually escalating. Do we want that in thriving democracies? Do we want justice to only apply to some people? If you're well connected and high up in media organisations, do you want that ring of protection around certain people? Do you want people with enough networked power to be protected from being held accountable for criminal actions or alleged criminal actions? And at this stage, well, are they alleged if they're found in a civil trial by a justice? I don't know. I guess they need to be tested in a criminal court. And if these people are innocent, which they could well be, they can easily defend themselves in criminal proceedings, can't they? And actually their job has been made a lot easier because Levinson 2 never went ahead. None of the actual findings of Levinson 1 were ever implicated. I'm not saying that they should have been. I'm not sure that I'm really backing regulation of the free press by government entities. I find that totally terrifying. So it's sticky. It's sticky. But if something's sticky, is that an excuse not to look? Is that an excuse not to double down, dig in, have a look, expose everything to the light? Is that any excuse? Should they be made to defend allegations against them? I think they should. I think that's the only way all of this will ever really be over. And it's the only way that other claimants with real claims, other than Prince Harry, whether we dislike him or like him, he's a distraction. And I think other claimants deserve justice. So that is my passion plea for justice at the end of 2023. And it is brought about by no small measure by a feeling of responsibility, because I have focused on the fun and the furor and just the delicious delight of exposing Prince Harry and his more ludicrous claims and his inconsistencies and his unfair allegations against his family, and the feeling that, you know, he was cruel to his ailing grandmother and ailing grandfather, and that he really did make the last few years of their life awful and unpleasant, and that's why I don't like the guy. But I feel in some small measure I've played a part in the distraction against the real issues, the distraction that maybe is making justice not be served. And that's troubling me and it's troubling my conscience a little bit. So that's why I had to make this video. Now, in regard to Justice Fancourt's findings on Omid Scobie, I was with you 100%. How could he base his findings on anything Omid Scobie said? And as Piers Morgan said, Omid Scobie had it in for him, and that he alleges that Omid Scobie's witness statement was actually fabricated just to throw him under the bus. And until those claims are tested in a criminal proceeding, well, why shouldn't we believe Piers Morgan? There's one troubling aspect to that, though, and I did check this in the findings. There was physical evidence. There was an invoice from private investigators for services rendered, and those services rendered were actually providing the private phone numbers of Kylie Minogue and her then boyfriend James Gooding. And that was the physical evidence that Justice Fancourt actually considered. There was also the political editor of the Mirror Group at the time, who also, I think his name was David Seymour. Sorry if I'm wrong, my iPad's actually lost charge and I've lost all my notes, so I'm doing all of this off the top of my head now. But he claimed that staff overheard Piers Morgan saying that he knew that hacking was going on, that they overheard him saying that to actually executives of the Mirror Group. Now that's hearsay. And that's just one man's word against another man's word. And so that's why, probably criminal proceedings would help. I mean, Piers Morgan is coming across as highly confident And the fact that he's highly confident means that he's highly confident that he could probably easily defend these claims. So that would probably clear them all up, quickly and efficiently. What is interesting to me, and this is the final point I will make, is that lawyers representing MGN, when that hard physical evidence of that invoice about the Kylie Minogue numbers came out in this case, they had every chance to call Piers Morgan as a refuting witness. They also had every chance to actually stand up and make an argument against the claims of Omid Scobie and also of the hard physical evidence and also of this political letter that's so-called heard conversations. They could have refuted it there and then. And Justice Fancourt says in his findings, and I have read it myself, that they chose not to refute any of it. They chose not to counter any of those claims at the time. Now that's interesting in itself, isn't it? And it's probably done a disservice to Piers Morgan and any of the other names that I mentioned. If they are indeed completely innocent, well then maybe the counter-argument should have been made more vigorously during this civil trial, because it probably would have protected them from future investigation. So MGN maybe needs to look at their representation, as well as everybody saying that Harry needs to look at Sherborne. Maybe the representation on the other side was a little lacking as well. So let me know what you think. I think it's really interesting to look at the story behind the story, and that is what I've tried to do fairly in this video. So let me know what you think. And whenever I sort of try to bring a counter-argument or fairness or the story behind the story or bring other things that are being said, I just get a whole lot of attacks, with the usual. So that's why I've said, put Prince Harry out of this. Put Piers Morgan out of this. What I've presented to you in this video is other people, other perpetrators, other victims that have been severely affected. So I hope in the comments that you'll address what I've tried to say rather than go back over the same Piers Morgan, Prince Harry sort of stuff, because really I'm just going to have to waste time saying I agree with you to a large part in all of that. But that's why I have to just peel away that in order to look at what's really going on. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you again really soon with a much lighter one. I've got more reviews of The Housekeeper's Diary coming for you, and they're so juicy. See you then. Bye. Lee.